Sarah, not many people know that you actually are responsible for this entire scandal kicking off because you asked in Senate estimates a month or so ago for the total expense of Annika Wells' Paris trip, but the official you questioned was unable to answer. Let's have a look at that moment.
Do you have details of the total cost of the minister's travel, including the two officials?
We do have...
including the one official and the one person from her office?
Yes, we do have that. I will have to check because we have to disaggregate the DFAT costs from the department costs. If I can come back to you later today on those numbers.
If you could, because that is important.
Yep.
Those costs would have been approved.
And Sarah, of course, the government then provided that answer to you last week, that $100,000 figure.
Well, Shari, good evening. Yes, and as a result of that question, we learnt that Annika Wells and a staff member and a departmental official spent almost $100,000 on flights. Annika's flight was $34,500. Now, that is a nigh-watering amount for a return so-called business class fare. We still don't know why the minister decided to go to New York in the middle of a 000 crisis. But the fact that she didn't ask for a better quote or go with another airline or even explain how she could spend that much money, it just goes to the deep concerns that we have and of course many Australians have about this spending. And I am pleased to see that she has now self-referred herself to IPIA. But, Shari, we also need to see the Secretary of Prime Minister and Cabinet also implement an inquiry as to whether she has breached the Ministerial Code of Conduct.
When you asked that question, did you ever imagine it would lead to this unravelling?
No, I didn't, but that's one of the really important aspects of Senate estimates, a very important part of holding the government to account. We've had so many issues extracting questions and documents and FOI documents from the government, but I am pleased that we were able to highlight this reckless spending from this, frankly, hapless minister.
I'm going to come back to that topic a bit later. I want to talk to you about another interrogation you've been doing today. This is relating to the 000 outages. There's a snap Senate inquiry into it. Now, Sarah, you questioned the telecommunications company TPG Telecom, their chair, on whether there was a second fatality. And this is because people haven't been able to call 000. Have a look.
So the Samsung device did not work when the caller dialed 000, but it then worked 5 minutes later.
The phone was working on 4G calls but could not make emergency calls.
But the phone could connect to the national relay number?
Could connect to any other number.
And was the 5-minute delay in that person calling a critical factor in the death of that person?
I don't have that information.
I mean, Sarah, this is highly concerning. If someone has an outdated phone, and not everyone can afford the newest versions, especially not in this cost of living crisis, then they may not be able to call 000. Is that the evidence that you heard?
It is, Shari. This was a Senate inquiry into the Optus 000 outage, which occurred in September. I initiated this inquiry because we were frankly getting far too few answers from the government. But we've now learnt today, as a result of many Australians having outdated phones, mainly Samsung phones, also some iPhones, and many are not capable of being upgraded. We heard about, very tragically, a second suspected death which occurred on the 24th of September. Now, Shari, this occurred when the minister was swanning around in New York. We said very clearly she should never have gone to New York in the middle of an unfolding 000 crisis. She was there, and I would say very strongly that it is a disgrace that the minister, after learning on the 26th of September that it was likely this was linked, this death or suspected death, in terms of the linkage with the Samsung device. That was the most obvious cause of the death, and yet the minister never raised the alarm bells. She never scream from the rooftops, please, to all Australians who have incompatible devices. You must either replace your device or upgrade your device. And I think the carriers, they've provided some answers today. They've also got more questions to answer, in my view, as well. But it's a shocking case of mismanagement by the minister. I think there has been a cover-up in relation to this second death, and clearly there's been a strong evidence of incompetence.
Look, it's a worry that there's going to be more of this, because how would any Australian know if their device is you know, they might just think it's an old phone. Who would know if they can contact 000 or not until it's an emergency? I think this is a very big problem, and good on you for taking it up. Just before you go, Sarah, the Sydney Morning Herald reports today that you had a confrontation with the ABC 7:30 host Sarah Ferguson. This was in the corridors of Parliament House, and it was over the doctored Donald Trump speech. Now, the Herald reports that Sarah Ferguson told you to get your facts right, that she confronted you. Can you tell us what happened?
Well, I was having a very pleasant catch-up with Raph Epstein, of course, who hosts the breakfast program on ABC Radio in Melbourne, passed Sarah in the corridor, and she turned around and basically came back to me and said, in a very robust way, I have to say, Shari, please stop attacking my journalism. Now, I was in the middle of trying to initiate an inquiry into the ABC, and principally concerned with the ABC's statutory obligation to disseminate news and information impartially and accurately. And I had raised concerns about the way in which she had edited that Four Corners program, Downfall. She had a very different view. I am disappointed that what I thought was a private conversation has been leaked to the newspaper. I didn't do it. Raph Epstein tells me he didn't do it, so I can only conclude who might have done it. But look,
and were you
I'm always willing to.
Were you frank back to her?
I probably not quite as robust as Sarah. I did have to ask her to stop putting her finger in my face. She was pointing fairly aggressively at me at one point. And look, I appreciate that she's under a bit of pressure. There was an interview she did with Susan Lee a few weeks ago where she was also criticised for being overly aggressive, basically interrupting Susan some 35 times. But our job as senators, and particularly because I sit on the Environment and Communications Committee, is to ensure the ABC is the very best it can be. It's a publicly funded national broadcaster, and so I have a very important job to do. And so I'll always welcome a conversation with any ABC journalist. My doors are always open in terms of discussing these matters, but I was a little confronted by the public corridor discussion that I had with Sarah.
All right. Sarah Henderson.